Welcome once again, my fellow manipulators of digital fate. I'm Richie, this is Capricorn. Today we're back at it with another standard deck tech featuring cards out of Tarkir Dragonstorm. This one in particular, I think, might be the go-to deck, at least for me, to rank up with, because it's a new twist on the Boros burn deck that I brewed a number of weeks ago. This one's called Frequency, and it takes it to the next level because we have Cori-Steel Cutter, one of the craziest new cards to come out of Tarkir Dragonstorm, which lets us pile on the damage. It lets us keep up with our damage plan so that we don't have to slow down on aggro, while also adding a whole bunch of long-term card advantage because it just spits out a token every single turn, and the tokens that it spits out have haste, so we never have to slow down on the damage output while still piling up the tokens so that we have long-term damage potential even when we run out of gas. But in addition to the Cori-Steel Cutter, which I think is a card you're going to see everywhere in the coming weeks, it's honestly one of the best cards in the set, we have a couple of other new cards that kind of work in a similar fashion. They let us just keep piling on the damage and not have to slow down on our aggro output, while still giving us a ton of card advantage a little bit later on in the game if we do run out of gas. And because of that, I think Burn is back in a huge way. I really think one of the big downsides to running Burn is that we're killing our opponent with spells, not necessarily creatures that can keep coming back for more, and so we can run out of gas a little bit early. But I think this deck solves that. I think this is a way for us to keep piling on the damage, not have to slow down, but have enough card advantage later on in the game that even if we do run out of gas, we get to refill our hand or utilize a bunch of card advantage that we played earlier to just keep the deck going and pull out the win. Not only that, but we're able to sometimes swerve our opponent, make our opponent be sort of tricked into thinking we're running a creature deck and focus on our board state instead of focusing on stopping our crazy damage output potential just coming from spells, from burn spells. So there's a lot of mind games you can play with this deck as well, because a lot of the other red decks that you're seeing in the environment are creature based, are pump spell based, and this deck sort of doesn't use any of that at all, and sometimes we can just get wins on our opponent out of nowhere because our opponent thinks that we're playing one version of the deck when we're playing something completely different. You're going to have to see it in action. Before we get to the gameplay, please like the video. It helps me get it out to so many more people. And please subscribe if you're new, because I got a ton of craziness coming. In fact, I have a couple other brews coming with Cori-Steel Cutter. I think that card is the real deal. But catch me live Monday through Friday over on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/QuarantineCapricorn, because if I'm alive and I'm breathing, I'm there and I'm streaming. Now let's break down this deck. The new burn is here, baby, and it is wild. So, first of all, we have Cori-Steel Cutter, which is one of the most insane cards to come out of Tarkir Dragonstorm. 2 mana artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has trample and haste. It equips for 2 mana, but most importantly, it has a flurry ability. So whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess, and you may attach this equipment to it for free. Which means every single turn that you double spell, you get a 2/2 trample haster just swinging in out of nowhere. But it gets even crazier because the token remains, and if you start to stack it up every single turn, you're making another token, equipping this to that token for free, but the previous token is getting all the prowess triggers off the 2 spells that you cast in order to trigger the flurry. Now you still have an insane amount of value that's swinging in, and it just gets insane and snowballs every single turn. Cori-Steel Cutter is one of the best cards to come out of Tarkir Dragonstorm. Mark my words, it's going to be everywhere within the coming weeks. Another notable thing about Cori-Steel Cutter is it is a non-creature itself, which will trigger other prowess stuff when you cast it, and also you could just equip it for 2, so if you are out of gas, even if you are out of gas, you just pay 2 mana that you don't need for anything else because you don't have any cards to play, and just equip this to whatever your best creature is to give it trample and a buff, and it can still be valuable, which is just kind of gnarly. In addition to using the Cori-Steel Cutter, we're using something that's a little bit similar to that, Reverberating Summons. And this is a card that I think most people have overlooked. This entire deck is a burn deck first and foremost. all of the creatures in the deck, or the things that create creatures, are just there for extra damage and a way to get our opponent to take their eye off the ball and focus on our board state instead of realizing that we're just going to get there through direct damage spells regardless. And Reverberating Summons helps us do that in a couple of different ways. First of all, it's a 2-mana enchantment that isn't a creature itself, so we can just put it out and our opponent can't really kill it very easily. But if we've cast 2 or more spells this turn, at the beginning of combat, it becomes a 3/3 hasty monk and just swings in for damage. And what's cool about the way that this triggers, it's not exactly like Flurry. It doesn't trigger when we cast the second spell. It triggers at the beginning of combat if we've cast 2 or more spells. So we could do some really cool play lines by playing the Reverberating Summons as the actual second spell, which normally you wouldn't be able to do with something like Cori-Steel Cutter because you'll miss that second spell trigger. But with Reverberating Summons, we can play it as the second spell. So some of our cards that we'd rather play as the first spell to get value off of the Reverberating Summons, such as our Sawblade Scamp or our Monastery Swiftspear, which we'll get to in a moment, can still get value off of casting the Reverberating Summons, get the prowess triggers and stuff like that. And then this will still become a creature at the beginning of combat and swing in, which is really, really nice. But then on top of that, we have built-in card advantage. One of the problems with burn decks is just running out of gas because we're mostly using targeted burn at our opponent's head, running out of gas before they're dead, right? And we get around that to a certain extent by having a little bit of a supplemental creature base that isn't the primary way that we're taking out our opponent, but still adds to it. And Cori-Steel Cutter definitely helps in that capacity. But Reverberating Summons also has this other thing we can do which helps as well. For 2 mana, we can discard our hand and sacrifice the Reverberating Summons to draw 2 cards. So when we are out of gas and we don't have any way to double spell and turn the summons into a creature anyway, we just get free value. We just pay the 2 mana, sack this, and get to draw 2 cards because we're out of gas and we don't have to discard anything anyway. And I think that's an insanely powerful ability tacked on here that's going to be overlooked. I don't think most people are realizing that this card is the real deal, and I absolutely think it is. The key is, because we're running 3 copies of Reverberating Summons and 4 Cori-Steel Cutters, we need an awful lot of 1-drops to make sure that we are able to trigger the double spell every single turn as often as possible, which can be a little bit tricky, so we are doubling down on our 1-drops. So because of that, we have 4 copies of Boltwave, 3 damage to the head, 4 copies of Burst Lightning, 2 damage to whatever we want, or if we are getting towards the end, the mid to late game or whatever, and we do have the extra mana, we can kick this and do 4 damage to a target. And then we've got our Monastery Swiftspears and Sawblade Scamps that can come out on turn 1, get in for a little bit of extra damage. The Sawblade Scamp in particular can start to build up oil counters with all of our non-creature spells that we're casting, so even once they do have legitimate blockers out, the Sawblade Scamp has a bunch of counters built up on it, and it can continue to just ping for 1 every single turn. And that extra bit of negligible damage absolutely helps us end games, usually a whole turn sooner. I think Sawblade Scamp is another card that is somewhat overlooked, although it only works super well in decks that are very creature light. And because this deck is very creature light, focusing on the Cori-Steel Cutter and the Reverberating Summons, which don't actually count as casting creatures, I think the Sawblade Scamp is particularly good in this. But the Swiftspear itself is also good because of the prowess triggers. In an earlier version of this deck, we were running the Lizard that pings for 1 when it attacks. And I think you could make an argument for running that instead, because you can make sure that that card gets in for a point of damage right away no matter what, even if they have blockers, as long as it gets to just initiate an attack. But because we have so many cards that can trigger prowess in this deck and so many ways that we're looking to double spell anyway, I think the Monastery Swiftspear does make sense as not only something we can get down early and capitalize on all those prowess triggers with, but as another card that just costs 1 mana that can help us get those double spells that can contribute to extra damage the same turn that we play it because of the haste. We also have 2 copies of Shock. We are really only running these because we needed more 1-drop spells, but we have 10 shock effects, and I think the 4 Burst Lightning with their ability to be kicked, and the 4 Channeled Dragonfire that we're running are probably the better targets. Now, you're not usually gonna excuse me, you're not usually going to be able to harmonize the Channeled Dragonfire because it is super expensive, but just the fact that you do have that built-in way of potentially getting more damage out of the Channeled Dragonfire does make it worth running over the Shock, I think, even though it is at sorcery speed. As long as we have enough ways in this deck of being able to kill our opponent's creatures when we're up against other like prowess decks and stuff like that at instant speed, I still think it is worth it to run the Channeled Dragonfires. We can even discard the Channeled Dragonfire to grab the prize, which is another card that I think is really overlooked in decks like this. We get to draw 2 cards, but we have to discard a card. But if we discard a non-land, we get to deal 2 damage to each opponent. So a lot of times what we can do is just discard our Channeled Dragonfire, which was going to deal 2 damage anyway. We still get the 2 damage because we discarded a non-land, except we only had to pay the 2 mana for grab the prize. So when we discard something like a Channeled Dragonfire, or a Burst Lightning, or a Shock, it kind of feels like we're just casting that 1 mana spell for free, and then also casting a card that for 1 colorless mana just lets us draw 2. And that feels really good in a burn deck that can just make sure to kill our opponent super quick as long as we have enough gas. So being able to discard one of those 1-drop burn spells for 2, it feels really, really good. Being able to discard a Channeled Dragonfire feels even better because sometimes if we do make it to the mid to late game, we can cast this for its harmonized cost and use it to just close out the game that way. If we're up against a control deck or a life gain deck that's dragging the game out, it can actually make the difference. So absolutely love the 4-copied of Channeled Dragonfire. But having the grab the prizes and the reverberating summons in this deck just feels awfully good because it's a way for us to include ways to draw cards and not run out of gas without slowing down our damage potential. Grab the prize can still deal damage while doing it. Reverberating Summons can turn into a creature, get in some damage before you have to get rid of it to draw cards. So I think they're just perfect, and I think they're honestly amazing in a burn deck like this. Closing out the deck, we have 2 different spells that are the reason for running white. We have 4 copies of Boros Charm because they can just do 4 damage straight to the head, and then 4 copies of Lightning Helix, which in a similar way can just deal 3 damage straight to the head, or can be used as removal. But more importantly, if we're up against other aggro decks and we're trying to race them, like traditional, prowessy mono red decks or whatever the case may be, maybe the goblins decks, it gains us some supplemental life. It gains us 3 life when we play it so that we can win the race, which is super nice. One last reason for running white in our red deck is we have 1 copy of Dalkovan Encampment, which honestly is super worth it. Sometimes when we're out of gas and we have a couple of little creatures still on the battlefield, being able to spend 3 mana, tap this, and attack with an additional 2 1/1s right then and there on that turn can be enough to just win the game when otherwise we might be out of gas and not be able to. We are running 7 mountains to make sure we can play this untapped as often as possible, and to make sure that our 4 Sunbillow Verges get access to red as often as possible. We're also including 4 Inspiring Vantage because it's way more important that we play untapped lands our first 3 turns than that lands come into play untapped later on in the game. 1 copy of Thran Portal, just because it can come into play as an untapped land of either white or red, which is important, but also turn on our Sunbillow Verges and our Dalkovan Encampment, and there's no other land in the game that has all of that in the same land, so I do think it's worth running 1 Thran Portal, although I wouldn't go more than 1 because you don't want to stack up too much damage, especially when you're up against like a mirror match or some kind of other red aggro deck. Having to take damage every single turn from multiple lands could be what ends up doing you in and lets them win the race. The last 2 lands we have to get us to 12 white sources is 2 Raucous Carnivals. This one's another one that's overlooked in very fast aggressive decks. Most times this will come down untapped on turn 3, and it kind of feels like one of those slow lands because we are just burning down our opponent so quickly. But we want to just make sure that we're playing as many lands that enter untapped as possible, as often as possible, so that this deck can just keep going off every turn and not have to slow down. And I do think, even though once in a while these lands are going to come into play tapped, most of the time they're going to come into play untapped, and I think they're the best choice of lands to do that without digging too deep into the pain lands. So that's the mana base. Honestly, this deck just absolutely slaps, and it deals with the other mono red decks or prowess decks out there very, very well, because it has so many burn spells that can blow them out, kill their creature in response to their pump spell, and that sort of thing, and it doesn't rely on a lot of pump itself. All of the creatures are there for supplemental damage. We're not relying on them to get the bulk of our damage through. And because of that, we don't have to worry about being blown out by a lot of the same tricks that a lot of those pump prowess decks have to deal with, where their creature dies in response to a buff spell, and now you're just not going to have enough gas to get there before your opponent. This deck doesn't have that problem. Honestly, a lot of the times it tricks our opponent into thinking we're playing a creature-based deck, when really we're just finishing them off with a ton of burn, and sometimes they just don't even see that coming, which is awesome. But the absolute ridiculous card advantage we can get from Cori-Steel Cutter while not slowing down on our aggro is what makes this deck just absolutely nuts. I would expect to see this card kind of everywhere in the coming weeks, and in fact I have a couple other brews coming with this card that I think you guys are gonna love. But for now, this is the deck. I advise you try it out on the ranked ladder, because I do think it can help you to rank up super quick while not having to play the same old boring version of red that everybody's playing. But let's not take my word for it, let's check out the games. This is an extremely awkward hand. We absolutely can't keep it. Just a Dalkovan Encampment. Got a mulligan. This is okay though. We can keep this. We want to keep the cheap stuff, and we want to keep the card draw, so we're going to toss back one of the Boros Charms. We'll start with Mountain Monastery Swiftspear. Get in for a little bit of extra incidental damage early. Nothing heavy indeed. Storm Chaser's Talent. Big surprise. Big surprise. Do we grab the prize? I don't think we bother to grab the prize. I think we just Boros Charm. Save the grab the prize for a turn where we need the land and we need to draw into the land. Potentially. Alright, Inspiring Vantage. So we will grab the prize, discard Channeled Dragonfire, do 2 damage anyway, draw some cards, and attack. Do we actually even need to shock? I think it's better to save it to make sure we double spell for the summons next turn. So we do lose 1 damage on the prowess trigger with the Swiftspear. But I think we'll probably be okay. I think we can afford it. I think we can. I think we will. We can and we will. Nothing heavy at all. Well, it's a good thing we did that. We'll get out the summons first, because he could potentially have a counterspell that requires us to play 2 mana. And if we can get the summons out, that's really good for us. Even if he counterspells the shock, we still get the double spell trigger and we get to swing. Alright, he's just going to refute it. Well, it is what it is, I guess. We still get the trigger. Discards a Rao. And we will swing. Do we save the shock? Alright, he's gonna block. In that case, we do save the shock. Absolutely. End the turn. We need more card draw, man. Him dunking that summons was rough. But at least we have the Dalkovan Encampment. We can get a little bit of extra value while we're waiting to gas up. Potentially. Depending on what he does. Not really sure what he's doing. No rest, no mercy, no matter what. Show me your moves. Show me your moves. Grab the prize. Ooh, another grab the prize user. I like that. I like that. What else? What else we got? Burst lightning. I mean, we're gonna have to do this just to make our Swiftspear survive, which I think is probably fine. And then we'll activate the encampment, and we'll swing in, get a whole bunch of extra damage. Very nice. Very, very nice. What else? What else? We've got him really low, and we're playing a burn deck, and I don't think he realizes yet that we're mostly playing a burn deck, because we've been constantly putting out these creature-based threats. Storm Chaser's talent, sure. I mean, he will get to kill the Scamp. Or we could just do this. Just... Oh, it's gonna cost 7. We would need to tap the Scamp in order to play this. Do we get him to 1 by swinging with the Dalkovan? Here's what we're gonna do. We'll get him to 1 with the Channeled Dragonfire. And that also puts a counter on the Scamp, so now he has to kill the Scamp or he's toast. But the thing is, even if he kills the Scamp, we draw literally any burn spell, which is 95% of the deck. And it's game over. So I guess we'll see what happens here. Grabs Jace. Very cool. Well, there's our Channeled Dragonfire. Let's just see if that's enough to get the win. Is that enough to get the win? I mean, I don't see anything that he can do, right? Yeah, it's just over. Even just the Scamp would have killed him. Alright, this looks pretty good. We don't have white yet, but we don't necessarily need it yet. We have a lot of 1-drops. So we know we'll be able to double spell once we draw the cards that require that. And we've got either Swiftspear or Scamp on 1, which is nice. We'll keep it. I think we'll play the Scamp on 1 because it has a better chance of getting through for damage. Not getting through for damage by just attacking in subsequent turns, whereas the Swiftspears do. Burnout Bastronaut. I think we'll just see if he wants to trade his Bastronaut. He does. We're going to play the summons. I'm not taking a chance that we don't have our 3rd land. If we knew we had our 3rd land, we could make sure that we play the summons and a 1-drop in the same turn and be okay. Arabella. I think we just got to do it like this, unfortunately. And we'll just swing. He'll probably just block a Swiftspear and take 4. That's fine. We do have to kill that Arabella, but we don't really have good options to do so yet. But that's going to gain back a lot of life for him. And that's a problem. Luckily, he's getting a little greedy, putting down the Impact Tremors first. Being up against a mono red-ish deck, he's going to want to gain as much life as possible. And if he can gain enough quickly enough, he just wins, regardless of whether he can do enough damage quick enough. Because we'll just run out of gas, right? So I think being greedy and dropping the Impact Tremors was very wrong. Especially because we did top deck what we needed here. And even though it's kind of a bummer that we have to waste 2 spells getting rid of Arabella, we actually get value off of it because of all the prowess triggers, and most importantly, the double spell trigger on the summons. So now we get to swing for 9 and put him at 7. He's gonna really wish he gained more life and played another creature. If we top deck any 1-drop, it's lights out. Or if we top deck a land. Another 2-drop would be kind of rough though. Oh, we would need the white land, wouldn't we? Yeah, we would. That's okay. We'll attack. We'll force him to chump block. We'll end the turn. Now what he doesn't see coming is we can just sacrifice the Reverberating Summons to draw 2 cards. We will have to discard the Boros Charm. But it's still very much worth it for us because we don't have the white mana. If we had the white mana, we would just play the Boros Charm and win. Since we don't want to do it yet. We don't want to give it away that we have a bunch of card advantage coming. We're going to have 3 cards in our hand next turn. Because he might make some play mistakes, assuming that we're out of gas. Alright, there's some white mana. Let's see how greedy he is. If he lets even one of them through, we win. Alright, so I think what we want to do here is just kill the Voice of Victory. As much as I would have loved to put him at 2, it just makes the most sense. Plays the Hired Claw. 2 planes is kind of rough. Another Voice of Victory. Channeled Dragonfire. Yeah. Do we just get rid of the Hired Claw? I think we do. And with a little bit of luck, we might be able to play this next turn. Arabella comes down. Might be a day late and $1 short though. You're doing a lot of damage to us, but you need life. Just scoops it up. Fair enough. Fair enough. Alright, we're going to try and keep this. It's a little weird because we got 2 Verges. And we don't have a basic to turn the red on. But that's okay. We'll make it work. Reverberating Summons is no good for us right now. So I think we're just going to do this. Cut our losses, get both scamps out. Get in extra damage that isn't in the form of burn, because the burn can hit him for damage later. It's not a big deal. He's going to have to take the shock to force us to use Lightning Helix on the bat instead of shocking the bat. Or he's an idiot. That's also possible. No life gain for you. Give me back Lightning Helix. And we will swing. Looks like we don't have to be in a rush to kill him. It's part of what's cool about this deck is there's an inevitability. There's an inevitability where, like, as long as everything we play hits him in the face, he eventually will die. Doesn't matter if he dies on turn 3 or turn 6. He can't block most of the damage. Alright, so the summons becomes a creature. We hit for 5. And then it goes back to being a non-creature, so he can't kill it. Sacrifice a non-token creature, that's rude. Oh my boys. That's okay. Because we're doing the damn thing. Double spell. Swing 5. 𝐽𝑜𝐿𝐷RID. Man, what a bummer. Too bad we kill you before you get to draw, buddy. Alright, this looks fine. We have a lot of our flurry stuff, and we have a lot of our card draw, and we even have a Swiftspear to play on 1, so we will keep this. We don't have access to white, but we also don't need it yet. We also don't have a third land, speak of the devil. So we'll start with the Swiftspear, get in for a little bit of negligible early damage. Next turn, I think we get the Cori-Steel Cutter out of the way, although maybe we want to kill the 𝐽𝑜𝐻𝑚𝑒. The problem is if we kill the 𝐽𝑜𝐻𝑚𝑒, we're much less likely to be able to double spell next turn. So I'm just gonna do the thing. We'll let him keep it for 1 turn. We'll kill it next turn. He's probably gonna play another one. But that's okay. We should be able to somewhat keep it manageable. So what's cool about this is we get to play the Reverberating Summons second and still trigger its flurry ability. Because its double spell ability only triggers at the beginning of combat. So we don't have to play it first, which is really, really awesome. We get to swing in with a ton of damage. And what's cool about this kind of red deck is it's somewhat immune to sweepers. Like, if they sweep us, we still have the summons and the Cori-Steel Cutter to get value off in subsequent turns and to rebuild our board state, which is really, really cool. Alright, so we need to kill some stuff, don't we? So we're going to go grab the prize, discard Boltwave. We need to keep that Burst Lightning. And then we will shock this dude. Take action. And he's going to have a very hard time. Only one of our dudes has trample. He's going to kill the summons and get rid of a 𝐽𝑜𝐻𝑚𝑒 to do it. I am completely okay with that. Completely okay with that. We have lethal in our hand. That's what's so cool about this deck. It can create board states where our opponent is so focused on stopping what we have out for board presence that they forget or maybe don't even realize that we're just playing a crazy burn deck, right? And so we just kill them. We just kill them. Good night. Good night, sweet prince. This looks fine. We got Sawblade Scamp on 1. Maybe the summons on 2, maybe grab the prize, we'll see. Probably want to try to save the Burst Lightning if we can, to double spell for the summons. So we'll swing in for 1. Alright. So, I mean, we kind of want the Swiftspear out, right? This is sort of tricky, not gonna lie. We're gonna attack first, because he probably has a cut down, and he's waiting to use it on a better creature. Okay, that's fine. That is completely fine. We'll just get the Reverberating Summons out there. Safe from removal. All's right with the world. Alright, we'll go Verge, Swiftspear. And then we will grab the prize, discard a Burst Lightning, hit him for 2. Draw some cards. And then we will swing in. He'll Caustic Exhale the enchantment, but we still get in for 2 with the Swiftspear. Glorious. Plays an Unholy Annex, which is just speeding things up for us. We definitely want to discard the Inspiring Vantage. Hopefully we draw another Reverberating Summons. No dice. Guess we'll play out the Carnival and the Scamp, and we'll hold off on the Boros Charm. Get him to 10. That's 4, 5, 6, at least 7 next turn, unless he's got removal. Yeah, that's fine. If the Scamp had already had at least 1 counter on it, I think I would have kept the Scamp instead. We will swing. And we'll try to sneak in for some extra damage here. He probably has instant speed removal for the Swiftspear, but he's still going to 4, which means he has to get a demon out. And he was forced to discard, so he didn't have to pay the 3 life for the Bitter Triumph, which is nice. So he has to unlock the Ritual Chamber now, or else his own Unholy Annex brings him to 2. So he does get to go to 6. We'll play the land, pass the turn. Deep Cavern Bat. We'll let it land. And then we will kick a Burst Lightning at his face. Putting him at 2. He'll go back up to 4 at end of turn. All we have to draw is a Boros Charm and we win. Or something that draws us cards, maybe. Cori-Steel Cutter. We kind of have to keep it in hand to have a chance to double spell. I think he's just 1 turn ahead with that Unholy Annex. And we flooded a lot this game. Like, we're a quarter of the way through our deck, and we have 6 lands, which is... We even discarded 1. So, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's over. I think it's over, guys. We get him to 3. Just a little too late. A day late and $1 short. It is what it is. It's gonna happen sometimes, you know? Alright, this looks pretty good. We'll keep it. Start with the Inspiring Vantage. We'll go 𝐽𝐻𝐼𝐿. We could have burst lightning the 𝐵𝑎𝑠tronaut, but I'm greedy. Mountain. Scampy. Swing. We'll hold up Burst Lightning here. I want to deal with his creatures first, I think. We're ahead on the board. My kitten is meowing. My kitten is big meows. Horde Master. Kill the 𝐵𝑎𝑠tronaut before he gets card advantage. Torches our 𝐽𝐻𝐼𝐿. That's fine. We will take one. Does he want to trade? Do we even take the risk? 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I don't think we even need to. Pass a turn. We'll hold up Lightning Helix. If we're desperate, we can block with the Sawblade Scamp and then still ping for one. That was just going to be too much value, so got rid of it first. Alright, we ping. We are still ahead. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We're going to do this while we can. While we have the opportunity. Would you like to trade for my Scamp? Didn't think so. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Should be able to kill him in 3 turns. The question is, can he kill us in 3 turns? Maybe. Boros Charm. I think he's dead. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, he's toast. Good night, goblins. Oh, he didn't even let me do it. Excuse me. This looks pretty good. We're gonna keep it. Start with the Swiftspear. Try to get in some incidental damage early before he can get out some creatures. Alright, get in for 1. Ooh, Cori-Steel. That's good, but it's not necessarily super good until next turn. But I still think we'll just play it out now. It does pump up the Swiftspear, which is nice. We'll swing in for 2. We could have waited until next turn, played the Cori-Steel Cutter, followed by one of the 1-drops. And so this turn we could have played like a Lightning Helix. But I sort of like the way this is going. Let's start by playing Grab the Prize and ditch the Burst Lightning. He'll take 2, we'll get the Prowess trigger. Then we will Boltwave. Take action. We got some boys. It's going to block the 3 damage, take 2, go to 10. That's fine. We've got 10 damage just in our hand if we can survive long enough to play it all. Grab the Prize is really, really good in this deck, and often overlooked in decks like this, I feel. 𝐀𝐫𝐞𝐧𝑚, sure. We've got some trample. Ah, damn it. We don't have a 1-drop. We do not have a 1-drop. We're just going to swing. We can easily play the Cori-Steel Cutter out first as soon as we draw a 4th land and still get the value off of it next turn. So not playing it this turn doesn't really change anything. I guess we could Lightning Helix this guy, right? That's not nothing. We got the trample, so we get to get through for a point of damage. Take out both of its tokens, put him at 9. So we only need to do 2 damage from non-burn sources to finish him off. Let's see what he finds with his United Battlefront. Come on, Battlefront. Come on. Ossification and the Iron Crag. I assume he's going to hit the Cori-Steel Cutter? No, he has to hit a creature or Planeswalker. I guess he can hit the token, and that's pretty good. But we get to Cori-Steel Cutter Shock, which is just lights out, man. Lights out. Good God. Thanks so much for checking out my channel. I'd like to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons over at Patreon. Without you guys, this channel would not be possible, so honestly, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your contributions. If you haven't yet, like and subscribe. The more likes we get and the quicker we get them, the bigger this channel will grow and the faster it will grow. I'd love nothing more than this channel to become something very special for you guys, but it's entirely up to you how fast that happens. Also, if you'd like more deck text, that's somewhere over there. And if you'd like to see what else the channel's been up to lately, that's somewhere up that way. Also, subscribe, circle below, do all the things.